Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I want to thank you for joining us today. We have a great webinar lined up for you. It's hosted by the IEEE Standards Association. My name, if you don't already know, is David Stankiewicz. I'm the event producer for today's webinar presentation on the topic of policy for artificial intelligence, ethics and inclusion for the algorithmic age. Today's session is actually the first part in a three-part series of events known collectively as Governing the Rise of Artificial Intelligence. So we have two more sessions in this series later in the fall. We'll let you know when and where to find those webinars. Those live presentations will be marketed and advertised out, so you guys can tune in for those as well. So more to come on the next two, but let's focus on this one here today: policy for AI. Before we get started and I kick it over to our moderator, John C. Havens, I want to just go over a few housekeeping items and also let you know how you can actually participate in today's session. We do want to make this interactive. So everyone should have joined today's webinar listening through your computer speaker system, also known as voice over IP. This means you're going to hear the entire presentation without dialing in using your telephone. This is a one-way audio broadcast, so only the speakers will be on the audio portion of the webinar. If you do have a question at the back of the presentation, we will be taking them through the chat feature. If you look on your WebEx interface, I believe it's on the top right or the bottom left of your WebEx interface, there's a chat or a Q&A window. You can ask questions throughout the duration using the chat feature. Send those questions to my co-event producer, Brett Houseel. You'll see him in the panelist window. Me and Brett will field those questions and get them over to the speakers, and we'll do our best to honor as many of those as we can. I also want to let everybody know we're actually recording today's presentation, so if you missed a portion of it or you just wish to watch it or reshare it, we will be making it available on demand. We will let you know when and where to find that afterward, as well as the slide deck. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to kick it over to our moderator, John C. Havens. John, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Thank you, Brett. Really appreciate all your help. Really thrilled to be here. And thanks again, David, for covering all the technical side of things. And if you can go on to the next slide, David, that'd be awesome. So just a quick sense of our agenda for today. We're going to be going for about an hour, so we'll go from now until about noon Eastern. After I open here with this opening, we're going to do some quick speaker introductions, just a very quick sense of the three of us who are going to be speaking today, and then three very short kind of miniature presentations. Myself, Cyrus, and then Frank will each introduce the work that they're doing, and that's to provide a level set for our discussion for the latter part of the webinar, which will be about 25 minutes in or so. I'll have a few questions for Cyrus and Frank first, and I already see we have some great questions going in the chat room, which is great because we can go from my questions very quickly to your questions, and really it's pretty casual. The three presentations, like I said, are just to give a level set of kind of a bigger picture from the IEEE Global Initiative perspective about what we're doing. And then from Frank and Cyrus, that's a sort of level set about AI policy in general and the awesome work that they're doing. And we'll go from there. So I've already introduced myself as the moderator. I'm the Executive Director of the IEEE Global Initiative for Ethical Considerations in Artificial Intelligence and Autonomous Systems. I'm the author of a book called Artificial Intelligence. And also know Cyrus. He's actually a very active member in the global initiative as well. So that's me. Next slide, please. Cyrus, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. And first of all, thanks, John, and IEEE not only for the tremendous work you're doing with ethically aligned design, but also for putting together the seminars to kickstart the global civic debate. So my name is Cyrus Hodes. I am the director of the AI Initiative and vice president of the Future Society. That's it.
Awesome. Frank, would you mind introducing yourself? Yeah, great.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Franck Escoubès. I'm the president and co-founder of a French and Canadian company, a startup company called Blue Nove. We are specialized in collective intelligence online, and we originated from an R&D program with MIT and the European Commission.
Wonderful. Thank you, Frank and Cyrus. And just as David pointed out and Cyrus pointed out, so this is the first in 3 webinars focused on AI policy issues. But what's really exciting is, and you'll hear more from Cyrus and Frank, they are also kicking off this longer-term campaign, and we're very excited to help highlight the work they're doing because it's a pragmatic way for anyone to get involved in AI policy issues in general. And so also in the next 2 webinars, we'll provide updates on how their campaign is going while we have other guests focused on AI and policy. So I'm going to do just a quick introduction. So I mentioned I'm the executive director. The shorthand name is the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative. And David, if you could do next slide, please. So IEEE, the tagline for IEEE is Advancing Technology for Humanity. And the reason this 4 is circled is to really understand what aspects of humanity that you want to improve in terms of advancing technology. How we talk about doing that with the initiative is through ethics or applied ethics, meaning you have to define what exactly is it that you're trying to do in terms of what are you improving for humans. Next slide. This is the website for the IEEE Global Initiative. Next slide. We have 2 main things that we do with the initiative. One is we create a paper called Ethically Aligned Design. Version 1 came out in December of 2016, last year, and version 2 is going to come out in this December. And this version coming out in December will have 13 sections, and each section focused on law, personal data, etc., has issues. So the 15 or 16 experts on each of the committees, and there's about 250 AI ethics experts globally involved in the project. They outline issues that are relevant for that area, so issues of law like robotic personhood, etc. The other big thing that we try to do is also provide candidate recommendations. Candidate in the sense of we really want leaders to have a solid direction they could choose, and based on these experts, they come to consensus on what those recommendations are. But the logic is, of course, it's something that leaders can have as fodder as they actually create AI technology. We really want this to sort of be one of the go-to resources globally that anyone creating AI would use, and it's offered in that way. It's long form, and it also points to awesome work like the work that Cyrus and Frank are doing, like the work of so many great groups around the world, the Future of Life Institute, etc. So that's the paper. Next slide. We have a number of working groups all over the world. Just in the last year, we've added people from China, Japan, Korea, South Korea, Brazil. Next slide. These are some more groups that we're adding, which we're really excited about. And the big reason, and it's great that Cyrus can talk about this being from Abu Dhabi, or spent a lot of time there at least, you can't have ethics that are just Western. Obviously, the planet has ethics that are also focused from an Eastern or Global South perspective. That's a big part of what we're focused on is global ethics. Next slide. Version 2 of the paper I mentioned. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all of these. The other big deliverable along with the paper Ethically Aligned Design that the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative is focused on is we provide recommendations for standards from the IEEE Standards Association. And standards, so you may or may not know, you don't have to be an IEEE member to join working groups. They're free to participate in, and their power lies in this idea of consensus when you get together, come up with ideas as a group based on the sort of scope of each of the different working groups. So right now we have 11 working groups inspired by the work of the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative. This is a list. Again, I won't go through all of them now, but all these groups are wide open, and what we've done is created a suite of these standards that are called the P.S.P. 7000 series. And the logic of why there's quite a few is that you can't sort of have one standard just about AI ethics. It's too broad a field, AI is, and ethics as well. So we have these different groups, algorithmic bias. You can go to the next slide. A lot of issues of data, because obviously AI is built on largely human data, et cetera. Next slide. We have these other things on nudging, et cetera, and then the most recent one we created is focused on well-being metrics, which is a big thing we're focused on sort of from a societal standpoint, much like we'll talk about later today. What are the ways that we can make sure that ethical or responsible AI also provably increases or aligns with human well-being? Next slide. And that's me, and I'm going to kick it over to Cyrus, and thank you everyone so much for allowing me to give that quick introduction to the work we're doing in the initiative. Cyrus.
Thanks, John. Next slide, please. Excellent. So we are the Future Society. We're incubated at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. We're a nonprofit based in Cambridge, Mass. And we gather student experts and practitioners interested in addressing the consequences of the current technology explosion. Our final goal is really to aim at helping decision makers and policy makers capturing the upsides and meeting the downsides of disruptive technologies. Next slide, please. So we work on many topics, AI being one of them, but Future Society also works on bioethics, nanotechnology, and neuroscience. We have two main initiatives that are being built. AI initiatives since 2015, and more recently the Science, Law, and Society initiative. So really at the crossroad of science and technology studies, adaptive leadership, and civic tech. So yeah, we have several chapters all over the world, stemming from, again, Cambridge, Mass, but we now have chapters in France, in India, in Mexico, in Spain, and in the UAE, and we have a fantastic network of advisors. Next slide, please. So talking about highly disruptive technologies, we've created the AI initiative in 2015. Again, you know, same stance to help capture the upside, but also limit the downsides of AI. And we're building an ever-increasing network of collaborators, and we have a genuine output for the initiative. So the examples are cited there. Outputs and help and collaboration we're having with various policy platforms worldwide. Next slide, please. So policymakers really need to address this governance of AI, and we're here to help them. So hence this collective intelligence effort, this global civic debate that we are launching with IEEE and BlueNov. It's truly unique exercise. It's truly a very innovative effort aimed at better understanding and managing the governance of artificial intelligence and its impacts in terms of ethics, in terms of politics, and in terms of public policy. The goal is really to help build a global policy framework to govern the rise of AI through transnational and trans-civilizational conversation as technology goes beyond boundaries and goes beyond cultures. Platforms originally in English, in French, and in Japanese, as you can see. We're working on extending it to Chinese and Russian right now. Our aim is to have 20,000 contributions from 2,000 global contributors. Next slide. So this is a 7-month campaign. Sorry, I forgot to correct the slide. This is a 7-month campaign, really, starting today, September 7th, and it's ending March 31st. We are 4 phases, and Frank's going to deeper on the phases, but I'm going to talk about the first phase that we're launching today, which is the discovery phase. During this debate, we'll collectively discuss and try to better understand how the AI revolution is unfolding, what its consequences are, and how to govern these consequences to maximize benefits for all and to mitigate the risk. Again, you know, that's really the essence of our action there. Next slide, please. So you will see that once you log in into the platform, the Assemble platform. So discovery phase, which I'm going to touch upon, once you get there, you see these 4 subjects. So we chose these 4 thematics because they're really encompassing, you know, the most pressing issues around AI. So we are really trying to crowdsource subjects during this discovery phase. So that's a series of questions, of 4 to 5 questions each. We have open answers there, and we are focusing on, as you see here, AI revolution, AI for the common good, impact on the workforce, and possible future by 2045. We also have videos there that educate and entice, you know, discussion to happen. So during this first phase, we will use the answers from contributors to harvest insights and to focus on the development of the second phase, the ideation phase, which Frank's going to touch upon. So quickly here, I'm going to linger a bit here because this is important. That's some example of policy-related AI issues that we are going to discuss. For instance, how can we transform our education system to deal with the AI tsunami coming to us in the workforce? How can we avoid an AI arms race? How can we harness the power of AI to increase access to credit, insurance, justice, healthcare, without sacrificing privacy, dignity, and democracy? How do we make sure that AI is safe and beneficial to humanity? And how do we make sure that AI's values, as we write them, are aligned with ours? It's very important questions. Colleagues at the IEEE are also working on pretty much on all these questions. Same for issues of transparency, understandability of AI to avoid black boxing, and many others. So we can go to the next one. So why are we doing this exercise? The end goal is really to have an impact on public policy. So that's why we have reached out and we started working with various policy platforms. So we're currently working and liaising with the OECD. We are doing the same thing with the European Parliament. We reach out to the EU presidency. More and more global nation states are started to wonder how can they tackle the rise of AI in terms of policy making, because they understand it's going to affect pretty much all aspects of society. So what we're doing is really aimed at gathering collective intelligence to get the best insights and the best recommendation that we can bring there. So we have clear deliverables, which is a report that we're going to write at the end of the campaign that we're going to present to various policy platforms, and that we're going to share also with the general public. More and more platforms are policy platforms are asking for AI help and recommendation on how to deal with this new technology that is affecting so many aspects of societies. Everyone is calling for a global conversation on the governance of AI. We are offering a tool that is real, that can engage pretty much everyone, from experts to interested citizens, and we highly encourage you to come in and join this debate. Next slide. That's it. To Frank.
Yeah, thank you, Cyrus. Next slide, please. I will spend the next a few minutes on methodology. Essentially, how do we build, how do we design a large-scale multilingual consultation process? So I'd like to say a few words about the platform that will be used during this online consultation. The platform is called Assemble. It is both a methodology and a software. As I said in the introduction, it was originally designed with MIT the Center for Collective Intelligence of MIT, and it's also a platform that was co-developed in the context of a European Commission project called Catalyst. And the purpose of Catalyst, just to put things in perspective, was to elaborate a collective intelligence platform that would help hundreds of thousands of European citizens co-design the future European Constitution. So that was the original mandate that was given to us by the European Commission. We worked with a network of partners for about 2 years, and the result is the platform that will be used during this consultation. So what is Assemble, concretely speaking? It's a software and a process that helps large communities of people co-design a solution to a complex issue. For us, large communities of people typically means hundreds or thousands of contributors. Of course, it can go onwards and reach tens of thousands of contributors, depending on the categories of communities and depending on the types of topics. In this case, as Cyrus alluded to, we are aiming at about 2,000 contributors. It's also a process that is conceived to deliver a formal deliverable within a limited time frame. In this case, a 7-month period. It's actually pretty long. In our standards, most of the consultation in participatory democracy that we run at Blue Nove typically lasts between 8 to 12 weeks, but in this particular case, because it's multi-continental, multilingual, and there's different phases, it might take a bit longer. I don't want to get too much in details about the technicalities of the platform, but a few words just to describe the experience of the user. Assemble is an online forum which enables many-to-many interactions. It's really conceived to help people have access to a free expression model in which they are not asked to enter a predefined set of questions, with the exception of phase 1, as you're going to see, but phase 2 and the subsequent phases will be completely open to conversations and threads. And the content, the user-generated content, is organized ex post by dedicated people and a bit of artificial intelligence, because we thought that it would make sense to use a bit of a natural language processing in a debate that talks about artificial intelligence. So Assemble is really designed to welcome deep content, argumentative discussions, and iterative cycles of collective thinking. And that's why it's actually based on a multi-staged process that, as Cyrus mentioned, will be composed of 4 phases. David, if you can go to the next slide, please. There are only 3 slides, so I won't take too long. But let me focus a bit on the 4 key roles that will be played during this consultation process, just to make sure that in participatory democracy, it's always important to be extremely transparent about how it works and what kind of information treatment will be done. There are 4 key supporting roles that will be operational during this consultation. The first one is a role that we call harvesting. The harvester is the person or the team that will extract, highlight key items, key ideas in the conversations, and structure the conversations dynamically on a daily basis in order to gradually build a table of content that we call a table of topics or a mind map that will structure the debate. If you have thousands of contributors and tens of thousands of messages, obviously it's important to structure gradually the debate so that people don't lose sight of all the different subtopics and subtopics. On a bi-weekly basis, there will be a synthesis that will be produced by a synthesizer, which essentially summarizes the state of the debate as it evolves. And it's extremely important in those kinds of consultations to be able to deliver periodic summaries of the key elements of the discussion, also because at some point of the debate, it's very likely that the, the intellectual structure of the debate will evolve, and key questions will gradually shift to a lower level or deeper level of understanding. Everything will be managed from a community perspective. So we have community managers that will do essentially two things. One is outreach, so making sure that as many constituents, as many stakeholders can onboard and be engaged in the discussions on the three continental areas that we are targeting. And also, once the people are on the platform, on Assemble, making sure that they get the right level of connections with other people, other contributors, depending on their centers of interest, and also be connected with the right threads and the right lines of discussion, the relevant threads that make sense to them. And the last role is a role that we call knowledge managers, and it's essentially different people that will gradually feed the discussions with data, with facts, with elements that help essentially do the fact-checking that is necessary in any open democracy or open consultations of this size and caliber. Next slide, please. And that's the last slide. As Cyrus mentioned, there are 4 phases that essentially structure the process of this consultation. The one that we are entering right now can be called sense-making or discovery. It's actually, it will last for about 6 or 7 weeks until the 1st of November. It's really a series, as Cyrus said, of open questions on 4 AI-related topics. The important thing that you need to understand here is that these are open questions. They will be treated by semantic analysis to make sure that we cluster answers, and everybody will be able to vote on the best proposals in order to crowdsource the topics that will be the core of the discussion that will start in phase 2. So phase 2 will start in November until the end of January. That is really the core of the open debate on all the key issues that will have been identified in phase 1. And that's essentially the forum, the online forum component of Assemble. It's composed of threads that evolve on a daily basis. Harvesting will be done, and the structuring of the debate will be gradually built depending on the new topics or subtopics that appear. And as I said, bi-weekly summaries will be issued and disseminated to all participants. The third phase is a phase that we call exploration. It's typically required that in an online consultation, because of the diversity of the inputs and because of the fact that the content is actually a series of narratives, it's very important to focus on key ideas and proposals from phase 2 and dive into very specific questions if we want to be granular enough to be able to design open policies or to be able to to design concrete recommendations for policymakers. So the third phase, which will last for about 6 weeks, is really about canvassing a series of key questions in order to refine, to fine-tune the key proposals that will be submitted in phase 4 to a voting session, a prioritization effort that will be based on the use of tokens in order to help prioritize the key and final public recommendations or ideas and proposals. And of course, it will lead to the publication of the final synthesis. So this captures, and these 3 slides capture essentially the essence of the methodological dimension of the online consultation that starts today. And next slide, please.
Wonderful. Well, hey, Cyrus and Frank, thank you so much. That's really, really helpful. Just one thing as a quick clarification, just so it's clear. What IEEE and the Global Initiative are working with Cyrus and Frank on is we're really excited about this work that they're doing with their campaign. And these 3 webinars talking about policy and AI. This first one obviously is talking about the campaign that you guys are doing, which is awesome. And we want to encourage people to join that campaign. Just a quick sort of disclaimer in the sense that, that said, when people join the campaign, whether they're from IEEE, the initiative or not, those recommendations that anyone goes in to make, which of course we encourage, will be people doing it as individuals versus any sense of formal IEEE policy. So just want to be clear, like, what's so awesome about the platform that you guys are creating is it's designed for anybody to join. And many people, I'm sure, from the initiative and IEEE in general will join it. It just won't necessarily be, or won't be IEEE policy per se. It's this great crowdsourced model. So anyway, quick disclaimer, but always good to say. Anyway, next slide, if you would, David. So Cyrus and Frank, you guys may have been looking in the chat room, but we have about approximately 25,000 awesome questions, and that's only a little bit of an exaggeration. And so what I'll do is, if you guys are cool with it, I'm going to go right to other people's questions, because the ones that I created here on the slide, you know, I'm happy to ask, but we've gotten fantastic participation so far. I want to say thank you to everyone for all of your great questions. So I'm going to go to the top of the list, and everyone keeps asking questions, so it's hard to get everything at the same place here. I'm just going to go. Thanks for your patience. Okay. So first question for Cyrus. Cyrus, do you think that the AI revolution is an overrated phenomenon? Ooh, good question to start off. Thank you, Nico.
How dare he ask that? No, definitely not. I mean, it's a very much a real phenomenon. It's interesting because, you know, you're about to ask why did we start the AI initiative. At the beginning, it was to inform policymakers about a possible intelligence explosion, and then we went much more pragmatic, and we realized that, you know, today we have issues linked to the development of AI that are already affecting us. You know, you were talking about algorithmic bias early on, so these are like clear issues that we see right now. You know, I was mentioning access to credit, access to healthcare, and you know, these are issues that are linked to AI. Policymakers have to deal with immediately. So, and not to mention, you know, all the future issues that we're debating in this platform that is coming our way. So by no means this is overrated.
Frank, do you want to add anything to that? Frank, you
no, just the fact that, and I have just to say as a caveat that, as you understand, I speak here as a methodologist of participatory democracy, not as an expert in AI, but for sure, I think that one of the key motives behind the fact that we were so excited with this initiative is the fact that here in Europe we tend to witness such a level of, I would say, confusion in the public debate on AI. Confusion about the difference between weak intelligence and general intelligence and super intelligence, the difference between AI and big data, between how to set the rules versus machine learning, all those elements in the public sphere and the public discussions that create so many controversies today, and it's extremely strong, at least in France, where I'm based. That I think it's really time for a more rational, multi-stakeholder conversation that essentially everybody talks about, but hasn't been done so far, hasn't been experienced so far. So that's why I think that it's really high time to start this kind of global mobilization.
Awesome. Thank you. And David, do me a favor. We had some requests. Can you go to the next slide? And that way people can see the link. We're not wrapping up, don't worry. But some people asked about this link. So we'll leave it up for a nice long time. I know you can't click on it necessarily, but you can copy it down. So anyone who wants to participate in the awesome campaign that Cyrus and Frank are leading, there's the link. A couple of people asked in the IM chat about the standards that I mentioned, the P7000 standards from the IEEE, inspired by the work of the Global AI Ethics Initiative from IEEE. You can look up P as in Peter 7000 or anything then 7001 up to 7010. So IEEE P7001, IEEE P7002. And you can join any of those working groups for free. You don't have to be an IEEE member. You can also get in touch with me. My email address will be up at the end, and I can send you a list of all those, and you just tell me which ones you want to join, and you're in. So it's a great thing. I wanted to give a shout-out. We got a really exciting IM from Kester, and hopefully, Kester, I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and I'm just going to read this because this is awesome. Kester wrote, I am the National IEEE Chair for Professional and Technical Activities, Ghana Chapter. I would like to inform you that I'll be broadcasting the webinar today live, Policy for AI, Ethics and Inclusion in the Algorithmic Age, to my students. A majority of the students, apparently they're taking an AI course this semester, and staff at the Ghana Technology University College. The total number of attendees is 200 plus. So Frank and Cyrus, join me in clapping for the Ghana folks calling in. That's awesome. And I know all of us have a heart. Yeah, go Ghana. And students, fantastic. And I know you guys are just as excited, of course, about students joining the civic debate as anyone else. So now moving on to some more questions. And I'm sad to say, I guess, in one sense, there's so many great questions, we probably won't get to them all. But so in that sense, Frank and Cyrus, maybe we can try to keep answers a little bit shorter moving forward. And then if we don't get to your questions, apologize in advance. But thank you for all the questions. So we had a great question from Elvis McNeely. Cyrus, I'll start with you. Has there been any ethics discussions with any governments? And Cyrus, that may be more of a general question, like some of the great work that I know that you know about from Japan and stuff with policy they've created. And also you mentioned some of the work that you're doing with this platform. So any government work that you want to talk about?
So you're mentioning Japan. Japan is extremely advanced, in their thinking about AI. They're really embracing robotics as a means to help society. So therefore, the society as a whole, whether it's people involved in AI or others are extremely involved there. So issues of ethics are discussed there. They're not discussed yet at or not enough, I would say. It's really embryonic at a government level or policy platform level, and that's exactly why the IEEE ethical design, aligned design initiative is working on, is to bring this dialogue there to government and to platform. So also what we're doing there, hopefully we'll have I'm sure we will have a big part of focus on ethics of AI that we are going to give recommendation to various platforms. So to answer you, the short answer is like no, there's no like real large initiative on ethics on AI, but for sure this is a majorly important subject and it will get on policymakers' tables.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for the question. I'm going to keep going on to, and this is interesting. People ask questions and it bumps me off of going in order. So again, also forgive me someone if I forget your or miss your question. I'm doing my best to make sure to stay up, but it's exciting how fast these happen. So I know we had a question from, let's see here. One second. First of all, David, can you answer? A few people have been asking, is the PowerPoint for this going to be available? I believe it is. Is that correct, David, that the recording and the PowerPoint will be available to people if they'd like it?
Hey, John. Yeah, it will be. We're going to make the recording and the slide deck available. We're also capturing all the questions. So anything that's asked of the speakers that you don't get to, we're going to create a master document and share that with you three. So as not to miss anyone's questions, because there are so many great ones.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, David, and thanks everyone for your questions. Okay, so this one, I'll let you and Frank, Cyrus, you and Frank decide who wants to answer it. This is from Ryan Carrier, who's a good friend. Ryan asked, how does the panel feel about independent audit of AI developers, where the audit would cover bias, safety, security, control, bias, ethics, and privacy, creating either a seal of approval like Safe AI or a rating system akin to a credit rating? So Cyrus or Frank, I'll let you decide who would like to cover that.
Well, I might just say here that this sounds like a fantastic proposal that should be written on the platform. You know, this is exactly for this kind of thinking that we don't have on a daily discussion. This platform is exactly where this question should be asked, where this proposition should be put forward, because end of the day, that's the voice of not only AI experts, but people working in various fields, whether it's the data robotics or cybersecurity, medicine, transportation. I mean, people who are involved on AI and going to be affected by AI that should ask and get involved in the platform to give this kind of a proposal that will end up, you know, being presented to policymakers. So I'm kind of deflecting the answer, but I'm encouraging you to post this online into the Civic Debate platform.
Awesome. And maybe along those lines, Frank, I'll ask the next question of you. I'm going to say a thank you to Ramesh. Ramesh, I apologize, I'm going to get your last name incorrect, but Anav Ajala. Ramesh asked a number of great questions, but Frank, I'll put this one to you. How do we educate our world leaders, prime ministers, presidents, members of parliament, etc., with regards to these incredible issues? So obviously you've got the platform, but you know, giving that sort of crowdsourced ideas from the campaign, that's a great way to do it. Any other advice about how to educate world leaders on these important topics of AI and ethics, etc.?
Well, my experience in the field of deliberative democracy is that world leaders and political leaders are more and more sensitive to the expression of the general public when it is balanced and I should say almost without being statistically representative, at least being when it's voiced by the right equilibrium of stakeholders. We've run a number of campaigns and consultations. The ones that have got the best traction with decision makers are the ones in which we could prove that there was not a single key stakeholder that was missing, in the consultation and in the debate, and especially in the field of civil society members, who are those associations and federations and representations of citizens that do not express themselves in their own words, but express the interest of a category of stakeholders. And the short answer for me is that if we can reach the right level of balance of representations between the key stakeholders of this AI issue, then we will be able to convince policymakers that the process is credible and that the proposals, without being participative in the sense that without being supported by millions of people, this is not a petition game, right? It's not a voting game. It's really a game about making sure that all the key stakeholders are minimally represented in the way proposals are voiced and fine-tuned.
Wonderful. Thank you, Frank. Had a great question from Constance Cannon. Again, thanks everybody. I'm skipping around because the IM chat is buzzing, and so I may go out of order. And as David said, we will, get your questions and do our best to answer them if we don't answer them here on the show. For either Frank or Cyrus, are you guys working with others in this space? For example, Berkman Klein. For the IEEE Global Initiative, the answer is yes. We have some folks even on our executive committee, an amazing woman named Malavika Jariam, who I think, Cyrus, you guys are working with as well. So yes, and then Cyrus and Frank, I know you guys are connected to so many amazing people. But Berkman Klein, I think you're actually directly related to, right, Cyrus, with the Harvard AI Initiative?
Yes, I mean, we actually are talking to them. They are based at the Harvard Law School. We are based at the Harvard Kennedy School. But obviously, we reach out to them and we want to hear their voice in the debate. We're having a forum at Harvard Kennedy School on the 21st on AI in the workforce. That's part of the events that are helping to promote and to give life to this global civic debate. So during that time, we will do our launch at Harvard, MIT, and we will also obviously reach out and present to the Berkman Klein Center.
Wonderful. Okay, had another great question from Lance Fung. Thank you, Lance. Lance asks, assuming the policies are in place, who will monitor the compliance of the design? So we can ask first about the campaign of that, but also we can just ask in general. It's a great point. The policies are out there. How are organizations or governments, made compliant, as it were? And Frank or Cyrus, I'll leave that to you to take first.
I just want to point out that we are not writing policy. We are getting insights, propositions that we're going to give to policymakers. So compliance is not a subject that affects us directly because this is a transparent and open. Sorry, I'm losing my word. So this is happening in a transparent and open fashion. As far as the government is concerned, then it's going to depend on their various national and transnational platform to make sure that they comply to the rules. But again, pointing back to what you're doing, John, and to the work that the IEEE is doing, that's also sets of rules that can be used in various aspects of AI ethics and compliance.
Cool, and thank you, definitely, Cyrus. And along those lines, we had a question from Rafael Cepeda, and again, hopefully I'm pronouncing everyone's name correctly. But Rafael said, is standardization planned or even possible in artificial intelligence? And again, the P7000 suite of standards that have been launched from IEEE, the answer is yes, meaning these 11 standards are focused on artificial intelligence explicitly, or also in different areas where it may not always seem it's explicit. Like, for instance, P7004 is focused on child and student data. And why that's so directly related to AI is that as algorithms are created, all human data, there just needs to be this clarity about and symmetry about how people's data, access to their data and agency, et cetera. And so in terms of those standards take, at least in the IEEE format, anywhere from 2 to 3 years to create, but the logic is they're all started. And so is it possible in AI? Sure. The great thing about standards in the IEEE way, at least, is this idea of consensus building, so that people get together in working groups. And it's actually good when they don't necessarily agree at the front end, because that means you're going to work together as a team to come to consensus on important issues about AI and ethics. So let's see. Next question. This is a really interesting one. It's not directly policy related. And by the way, we probably have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, so I'll try to make these quick, Cyrus and Frank, and then we'll do our wrap-up. Tristan Shelton said, do you believe AI can be used for therapeutic reasons, such as assisting an individual in overcoming psychological barriers through creating a dynamic environment that reacts to certain behaviors? And would developing this be ethical? Fascinating question. Frank or Cyrus, if you want to take that, who would like to take that one?
I think we should ask the author of artificial intelligence to answer that question, John.
All right, you're very kind. That's the name of my book. Yeah, I think, Tristan, to your question, AI certainly can be used for therapeutic purposes. I know there's some amazing work being done with different types of machine learning and AI for soldiers returning from battle. The logic being that sometimes there's less shame, apparently, in dealing with what you know to be a machine when you can talk in a way that is therapeutic. I think the thing there that's critical, and that's just one example, but is that the human interacting has to have full consent and know, and so to avoid what's called robotic or AI manipulation or nudging is sometimes the term. Where someone knows that the system is something that they feel comfortable using, and then how their data is exchanged is done in a form of consent, then this is my personal opinion, not necessarily that of IEEE, but if it's going to help them in the case of soldiers, then awesome, because it's helping them. Let's do this. Because it's gone really fast, and thank you again for all the amazing questions. But since we're almost at the top of the hour, and we have a couple of quick housekeeping things to do before we wrap up, let me do this. Frank and then Cyrus, if you can give sort of a 1-minute last thought that you really like attendees to think about. We'll go with Frank first, and then Cyrus, and then we'll wrap up. So Frank, last thoughts for about a minute. Anything you want to leave our attendees with before we sign off?
No, my only recommendation, and then again more from a methodological perspective, is I encourage everybody to participate in a way that the granularity of the co-designed recommendations be sufficient to be credible in order to establish formal recommendations for policy making. The reason why I'm saying this is that I've witnessed a number of large-scale consultations in which the level of specificity and the level of granularity of the discussion was not precise enough in order to form the basis of real policy making. So this is really an encouragement for very thorough, argumentative, counter-argumentative discussions, so that this debate and consultation be really useful.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Frank, and thanks again for participating today. Really honored to have you here in such a great platform and campaign that you guys have created. Cyrus, how about you? Last thoughts before we sign off.
Yeah, I just want to make 2 points. The first point is that our goal is really, AI is a very innovative, is a very new problem that's coming to us. And so for this, we have a fantastic innovative tool that Assemble is putting together. And our role and our goal is really to add a scientific value through this cross-pollinating of ideas coming from various communities, from the engaged citizens to experts and practitioners. And so we're reaching out to pretty much everybody. And thank you, John, also for allowing us to reach out to the IEEE community of 420,000 members who are interested in this question. So that's the first point. The second point is that we really want to impact policy for the betterment of mankind. We're creating right now a non-human intelligence. This is probably the most significant event in our evolution. And so we hope that policymakers will understand this and will get prepared to immediately respond for short, medium, and long term so that we can maximize the benefits of AI at the same time mitigating the risk properly.
Awesome. Hey, Cyrus, thank you so much. Really appreciate you and Nico bringing the great campaign that you guys are leading with Frank to our attention. And it's something that we're really excited from the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative to support with this in the next 2 webinars. So thank you both very much. And for me, hopefully, I put this in the IEM chat as well. Here's information about the work that we're doing, the Ethically Aligned Design Report. I also put the URL for the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative in the IEM chat. Per David's point, if people have questions that weren't answered in the chat, we'll do our best to answer them. The webinar will be available. And speaking from the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative, especially all those standards working groups, we need your help. They're free to join. You don't have to be an IEEE member. Great to have you join IEEE if you want, of course. But those 11 standards working groups, quite literally, if you join them, you can help shape the future of AI, and we need your help. So all that said, David, I'll throw it back to you. Thanks again to Frank and Cyrus, our amazing guests. And David, I'll throw it back to you, and thanks for all your help, you and Brett.
Absolutely, John. I just want to thank Frank and Cyrus and yourself again. And as John had mentioned, this is the first in a series of 3 webinars focused on AI policy. So when we lock in the dates for the second and third, we'll be sure to let everybody know where to find those. And that's it. I'll sign us off. Appreciate everybody joining us. And
thank you, everybody,
for all your participation. Yeah, have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.